Hello everybody, Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk about how everybody out there needs to enjoy the next 3 to 5 years because it's all about to change. If you don't stand up and start pushing back with your friends and family and neighbors and everyone at your churches, any other groups, if you don't stand up and start pushing back, it's game over. What am I talking about? Well, everyone for years has thought about Russia, and the Chi-Coms, the Chinese communists, being the real threat to the world. It's a threat, but it's not the largest threat to Western civilization, at least. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about this book here that was written by our good friend Father John Knoll before he became a bishop. And this is a book called Civilization's Builder and Protector. And what he said in this book is apparently so troubling that the people who printed it in the first place won't reprint it. But I've got a copy, and the copyrights have run out. So here is a copy of what our friend Father John Knoll had to say before he became Archbishop John Knoll. And what he talked about in this book, among other things, was the push by Islam, or Mohammedanism, as they called it back then, and I'm talking about the 1920s. And the frame of reference at that time was Mohammedanism, moving throughout the world and its influence and trying to take over areas. And Father John Knoll talked about Mohammedanism, or what we call today Islam, being the greatest threat to Christianity in the Western world. And what we're seeing today is what he told us about 100 years ago. And it's all coming true, and it's not the second time. In the book, he also talks about how Islam tried to make a push through Central Europe and into Western Europe at the time, trying to get to France and England and those places to take those areas over, much like the Roman conquest. And what held them back, they got through, places like Brussels and France, and they were able to make inroads there because these people basically laid down for them and were intimidated. And they weren't all that strong in their core Christian beliefs either. So that's a real part of this, is that they didn't have a whole lot of concern about holding on to their Christian beliefs and to try to preserve these things. They were ready to, give ground all too easily. The only country that really repelled the Muslim invasion in the 1800 era were the people in Poland. The Polish people had such a strong faith and concern for not only Christendom, but for the Catholic faith. They were very well formed. They were very well put together. They had strong leadership out of their people in the church in those areas, not unlike other areas, but apparently it was very strong and supported by the people in Poland, that the Muslims basically, walked away. They went to other areas that weren't as difficult to try to take over. And what ended up happening was the rest of the European continent kind of got their shit together and started pushing back a little bit later on. But it wasn't until a lot of damage had been done already to the Christian beliefs, their churches and things like that, that were burned down and destroyed. This happened. It's not talked about a lot, but this all did happen. It wasn't as prevalent and as forceful as it is today, but word didn't travel as fast back then, and so a lot of these things took place under the cover of, the system where the tree fell in the forest. Did it really make a sound if no one was there to hear it? Yeah, it was making a sound, and there weren't as many people there to hear it, but it was going on. And this gentleman here, Father John Knoll, became bishop in 1925 of the Fort Wayne South Bend Diocese. And it was a number of years after that that he, along with Monsignor Fulton Sheen, was made an archbishop. Now, both of these guys were made archbishops, even though they never sat in an archdiocese. I think Sheen was given a titular type of mention with some place over in Portugal, but they wanted to give him an honor, so he had some sort of relationship with this place over in Portugal that was just a way for him to be named an archbishop. And so what their reasoning was, I don't know, but the Pope and the Vatican, in their concern and wisdom at that time, I think this had probably been in the 1940s, passed along these raises of rank to these two bishops to that of archbishop, which was a very rare situation, and I can't find another one since then. So, but both of these guys were standing up and they were warning very, very forcefully about the implications of allowing Islam into your sphere and the problems that would come with it. And everything they said is exactly what's happened. So we need to pay attention to the wisdom of our forefathers and not believe everything we're being told right now by the media and the folks at CAIR, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations, who CAIR has now been determined to be a terrorist organization by the great state of Texas and Greg Abbott, their governor. The folks at CAIR, the Islamists, are really fighting back on this one because they say he has no power to declare somebody a terrorist. Well, maybe not legally from a federal level, but from a state level, he's the guy. And if he's determined this, he's determining this so that they can't come in as a group and buy up large tracts of land and to try to take over areas, much like what the Chinese have been doing. And we got to roll back a lot of that crap too, because there's no reason for them to be having huge farms near military installations and certain key bases that we have in this country. I mean, Biden let him fly the balloon over the whole country, but it doesn't mean we got to sell him the land that was underneath it. So we need to protect ourselves. You need to protect that which is close to you. Hold on to these things, because right now they're giving it all away. And pretty soon, like the giving tree, there'll be nothing left but a frickin' stump. In a lot of places, we're already there. So we got to pay attention to like what's going on over in Europe right now, because the second wave, the Islamists are making a big push to take over the Western world, and they're doing a damn fine job of it because nobody's standing in their way except guys like Tommy Robinson and other patriots who are shut down and told to shut up and not cause any problems. Otherwise, you'll get arrested. And that's what they're doing. They're taking out the guys that are trying to protect their lives, their country, their families, their women especially, from this scourge that's coming upon Western world and Christendom in particular. So don't believe them when they say that Islam is a religion of peace. It never has been a religion of peace. Not once has it been peaceful. Not once has it tried to coexist with people on an equal level. It's always been about one of subordination and dominance. They've never lived in peace. They talk about 300 years of peace with the Jews underneath them. That wasn't peace. That was submission with the jizya tax. And ask the people originally who fought back against it, they're all dead. And once they put them in their cemeteries and things like that, once the Islamists took over an area and felt empowered, what they typically do is they will desecrate these places of Christian burial, tear out the headstones, tear out the bodies, move them in one mass grave someplace, use them as landfill. Now, it was a lot easier to do in places over in Europe and things like this when they were quietly going about their work, because they wanted this prime land that these Christian burial sites had for their families. Well, once the Islamists came in under Muslim rule and Sharia law, they didn't care anymore. They just got rid of it all and reclaimed the land for other purposes, desecrating the bodies. They didn't care. They thought they were infidels. They were just pieces of dirt to begin with, from their perspective. So this is what happened to a lot of people's forefathers and ancestors who were dug up and moved or just built right over with no care or concern for these souls that were underneath there, because the Islamists never respected them in the first place. You don't believe me? Look it up. So this is bullshit that's going on, and it's being fostered also through our complicit media, our complicit politicians, our complicit other religious leaders who are opening the door to these folks without any care or concern for the follow-up question. Nobody pushes back. One of these folks says something, nobody will push back on these folks because they're too afraid of them. And this is their plan, to use their intimidation, use your laws and rules and your good feelings towards brotherhood to someone, your compassion, your empathy, feminine side of the brains that I talked about. We need the dad brains back to start pushing back, because the mom brains have really put us in a bad situation here. They're just doing what they do naturally, and the folks who are trying to utilize that compassion and empathy for their gain know exactly what they're doing. And they're laughing at you behind your backs. This is not a good thing. This is not how good relationships, this is not how good neighbors work with one another. Now, the folks in Dearborn, Michigan, they talk a big game. They talk a real game of, oh, it's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Go to Dearborn, Michigan. You want to see how an area get taken over? All of the street signs in the city of Dearborn, Michigan are in English and Arabic. So much for assimilating. These folks don't want to be Americans. They don't. They tout about jihad. They talk about, taking over and converting the Christians to being Muslim, talking about living in this peace. It's all about submission, folks. It's all about submission. You either adhere to the new rules or this is what their plan is. This is what they're doing. They're taking over your girls. They have grooming gangs in England going around in large groups trying to recruit young girls without strong ties in their own families and neighborhoods. And they're converting them and moving them into basically being submissives, for their sex play. And the Muslims don't think anything of it. They talk how it's bad, but what they do on their own is something worse. They're raping and distorting your girls. And this is all part of their plan for taking over. It's why a lot of times when armies would conquer an area, they'd kill all the men and the boys, and then they'd rape all the women and use them to help make more babies for them. A baby was a baby at that time. They would just use these women then as breeding pool to make them have more babies. And this is not a lesson that's been lost on people of today. Everyone says, oh, you can't be talking like that. Well, if you don't like the truth, change the channel. You can always go to Blue Sky or something like that, and you can get your feelings soothed there. But right now, you've got 3 to 5 years right now, because they are outpopulating. I'm saying the Muslims are outpopulating the Western lives, the Christians, if you will, or even the non-believers from the West. They are outpopulating, hand over foot, those other groups. And it's just a matter of time before it's all taken over. And they're bullying, they're changing the laws, they're bullying and changing the norms in these communities. They're bullying and changing the way of life to make it what they want and what they feel, Sharia. It's going on, and it's just really sad to see this going on, to see what my father and your fathers and grandfathers fought for to build this place, the suffering that they went through, the sacrifices they made. And right now, they're ready to throw it all away for some little bit of information they saw on one of these things that was complete bullshit. You know, people, you got to be smarter than that. You got to be stronger than that. You got to stand for something. I know that people who watch my podcast and the messages here, they know who they are. And we're getting more and more people all the time. It's a time you can't be sitting back on your hands like we have a lot of our leaders of our church doing. They're all saying, well, we got to be nice. We got to be open. Yeah, you got to be that. But you've also got to be disciplined. You've got to be ready to say no. Why are you in position of power anyway if you're not ready to say no? If you're not ready for the job, get the hell out. This guy was ready for the job, and the church and the authorities knew it. This guy was ready for the job, Fulton Sheen. He delivered every week, and people knew it was the truth, and it got stopped. But these kind of voices are silenced now because we got femme men running the Vatican. We got femme men telling us how it's supposed to be. You know, we need some dad brains back there. We need somebody to come in and say, hey, clean this shit up. We're not going to have this anymore. You know, somebody to come in with that kind of attitude. Maybe if we had somebody like Donald Trump in the church, somebody who's willing to take the heat and to say what needs to be said. This is not going to end well, people, if you don't stand up. How do we stand up? How do you get the message to the folks in the church and other places? Well, in other places, meaning like the public square, you've got to vote and you've got to speak up. You can't be silent. In the church, I'm going to say it again, we need to bring back the $1 donation protest. Put $1 in the collection plate. No more, no less, $1 bill. If they start seeing a bunch of $1 bills coming in, they're going to understand that people are trying to say something. Stop writing them checks. It's close to the end of the year. These churches have got all the money they need to get through the end of the season here. The diocese has plenty of money. The church is rich. The church is extremely rich. It's the third largest landholder on the entire globe. They're holding on to land they don't even know what to do with. They've got so much. But instead, they keep pushing you every week from the pulpit saying, we need more money, we need more money for this. You know what? It's time for them to start stretching their budget a little bit too. This is the only way they're going to understand that people are not happy with the results that are being pushed out by their authority and their plans. After a while, you just can't keep supporting these crazy ideas and these crazy measures. I mean, say what you want, but I can't see any good reason for putting in a Muslim prayer room inside the Vatican. Talk about capitulation, giving in to the devil. Do not go there. Blessed Mother warned against Islam in the mystical city of God. She said it was the work of Lucifer directly. Fulton Sheen said, do not follow Islam, don't let it near you. John Knoll, don't let it near you. Why are you letting it near you? Why are people doing this? Because they want to be nice. And they've been told that they need to be compassionate and they need to show empathy. But you don't let the snake into your bathwater. In the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.